Did you know that 59% of Americans play video games today? 52% of them are male and 48% of them are female, which I think is just crazy. Video games started off as a form of entertainment, but it's shaping our country in more ways than one, and they're not all good. I asked the audience two very important questions. The first question I asked is, how do video games affect the individual? They responded saying that for playing video games too long, that they could develop headaches. The second question I asked is, are video games destroying the young minds of America? They responded saying that it does have the potential to be dangerous, and that they could also lose grasp on reality and lose very important social skills. We need to limit what we let our children play, what we let America play, because it shapes their minds for the worst. I've played video games my entire life since I was 12 years old, and I chose this topic and I had no idea what the effects could be, and I strongly turned how I view video games. We're going to look at the history of video games, the biggest controversy of video games, and then we're going to look at the future of video games. So first, let's take a look at the history. According to the National Museum of Play, in 1940, a man named Edward Condon developed a game named NIM. Tens of thousands of people played, but the computer won 90% of the time. In the year 1950, chess programs were created by Claude Simmons and Alan Turing. Not sure if you know who Alan Turing is, but he played a very important role in how World War II happened. In 1962, an MIT student known as Steve Russell invented a space war game, which was the very first computer-based video game. In 1972, Pong was created, which is a table tennis video game. In California, it was played so many times that they actually broke the machine. In the year 1989, Nintendo released their first handheld video game known as Nintendo, something that my generation grew up playing. In the year 1995, Sony PlayStation was released, which is one of the largest consoles known to man right now. In 2001, 6 years later, Microsoft followed, which is also one of the largest consoles today. In 2014, free-to-play games started being a real thing, meaning that transaction within the video games allowed people to advance quicker in the games. For example, this could be Candy Crush or League of Legends. This led the businesses to billions of dollars. We know the history of video games. Now let's take it one of the largest controversies. One of the biggest controversies surrounding video games is if it has a harmful effect when playing violent video games. According to Brad J. Bushman, a PhD professor of communication and psychology, it does. Some people argued it's a way to release pent-up anger. Over 100 studies on over 100,000 people, it completely contradicted that, saying that it actually increased aggressive behavior, aggressive thoughts, anger, and psychological arousal. He also stated that it decreased empathy towards others, and it also decreased the helping behavior that we all grew up with. Some people argued that video games increases hand-eye coordination. He agreed that this is very true, but why does it have to be violent video games? Why can't it just be fast-paced video games? Brad gives us 4 reasons why people deny harmful effects done by violent video games. The first reason was quoted saying, "I play video games and I don't kill." He says that it's way too rare to study the correlation. According to the Federal Bureau investigation in 2010, fewer than 6 people per 100,000 people are murdered. It's far too uncommon to be able to tell if somebody murdered based on their day, based on how they're raised, or based on violent video games. It's just too hard to study. The second reason was that media has a much stronger effect on others. Because everyone agrees that media has negative effects, they don't believe that video game does. It's overpowered. People understand that media has a negative spin on things, so because it's such a large thing that's so discussed so often, they don't realize that video game is there in the corner actually causing psychological effects. The third reason is that the entertainment industry refuses to admit that violent media increases aggression. A vast majority get their information from the media, so when it's not spoken of, it's completely ignored. For example, the media never covered how the tobacco industry was actually harming people, and when it did, it was far too late. Too many people are getting all their information from the media and not doing research on their own. Video games took forever or they still haven't agreed that violent video games are having harmful effects on people, and until they agree with it, it won't be known. The fourth reason is that people don't understand psychological processes as well as they understand biological processes. And by this, I mean for smoking, for example. It's easy to understand by that smoking smoke into your lungs, it kills the cells, and then it could create a tumor. It's a lot easier to understand that than how playing a video game could actually harm your mind. It's just too hard to understand. We looked at the history of video gaming, and then we looked at the biggest controversy surrounding video gaming. Now let's look at the future. According to Michael Dolan, the future of video gaming is wherever the money's going. Follow the money. Wherever the vast majority of individuals in this world want their games to go, that's where it's going to go. For example, virtual reality is now a thing. We're no longer just playing with a controller. Now we actually have phones strapped to our face, so we have absolutely no recollection of the reality around us, and now all we have is the game. The average gamer right now is 30 years old, which means that they're going to be gaming well into their senior years, which could also shape the future of gaming. In conclusion, we need to take control of what individuals in our country play for video games because it's causing a harmful psychological effect. We looked at the history, how gaming has evolved. It's not slowing down anytime soon, and because we started with tennis and chess, and now we're shooting people in war, I can only imagine where it's going. We also discussed the controversy surrounding video games and how violent video games can actually cause violent behavior. And then we discussed the future. Where's the business going? It's going wherever money's going. That's business. That's how it goes. That's our country.